Wow, we have a full house. Not that I expected anything less for the rock star of the publishing world, Mrs. Murthy and Chitra ji. So last year, on this very stage, I launched my novel, All the Right People. As a debut author, you can imagine it was a pinch me moment. Little did I know that 12 months later, I would have another pinch me moment. The opportunity to interview two formidable women writers whose passion for storytelling I've long admired. Bring them both together, and what you have is nothing short of book magic. Everyone here has a unique love story, but it has to be said that Sudha and Narayan Murthy is pretty extraordinary. It's what romantic novels are made of. A meet cute between a Paris-returned self-proclaimed leftist and a brilliant film and book-obsessed female engineer. Telco's first, in fact. A mutual love for Chinese food and books. A proposal in an auto rickshaw. A dream that would result in a billion-dollar company. And a lasting and continuing impact on lives of millions of people. And a partnership spanning 50 years that goes far beyond just the domestic. Today, at the Jaipur Lit Fest, I am thrilled to be unveiling An Uncommon Love, a telling of their early years by master storyteller Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. This book is so special because not only does Chitra ji share an inside view into the homes and memories of Mr. and Mrs. Murthy, but she also sheds light on a life of purpose, a combined mission of service and a curiosity to know more, do more, and learn more. It is my greatest pleasure to welcome best-selling author, philanthropist, Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan winner Mrs. Murthy and the incomparable Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, two brilliant, prolific women. Chitraji, would you like to read now, or would you like to read at this point? Let's start off with their love story.
Yes. And what a nice, rainy afternoon. Perfect for a love story.
We set the mood at JLF. It's all about setting the mood. Would you like to come on stage? Would you like to come at the podium to read?
So I'm going to read a scene from the beginning of the book about how Mr. Murthy and Sudha ji met. And it is quite an interesting and different love story and a meeting. So at this point, Sudha ji is working in telco. And every day she takes the telco bus to get to work. And right next to her sits a young man. Is that Mr. Murthy? No. Keep listening. But he's always reading these fun books. And Sudhaji loves to read. And she's read a lot, but she hasn't read these books. So she's kind of peeping over his shoulder to see what book is it that he's reading. And she sees that on the first page, it's always written a name. And it's written Murthy's name. And places are written where he got the book. And they're all places in Europe. And she asks to this young man, who is this global bus conductor? And he says, he's sharing my apartment. We're sharing an apartment. And would you like to meet him? Now, Sudhaji, she's a smart young woman. She's the only woman engineer. She knows not to go to young men's apartments. Young ladies in the audience, you know this too, right? She's very careful. So she's about to say no. Then this guy says, he has lots more books like this. He has shelves and shelves full of books. In fact, that's all he owns. Now she's intrigued. And she thinks, okay. So she cautiously says, yes, I'll stop by tomorrow. What is she imagining? This is what she's imagining. It was too tempting, the thought of an entire room filled with exotic foreign writers she had not read and might never come across elsewhere, shelves and shelves of books she could perhaps borrow. And the owner of the books, she admitted to herself that she was quite curious about him. What would he look like? Now you have to remember, Sudha ji is a die-hard Hindi movie fan, right? So this is what she's imagining. In her mind, she imagined this intrepid world traveler to be suave and debonair, tall and broad-shouldered. Maybe, she thought, he would look like Rajesh Khanna, sporting sideburns and boots. All right, she said, I'll stop by tomorrow, just for a little while. And now comes the day she walks into this flat. When she walked into Prasanna's flat, though, she was surprised by the man her co-worker introduced her to. He was thin and slight, with thick glasses and a small scar on his forehead, a far cry from a movie star. He had on a checked coat that was nothing like the fashionable leather jackets the heroes of Hindi movies favored. He was quiet, almost shy, she thought, until they started discussing books. Then he shed his reticence and sparkled with intelligence and an eloquence that startled her. She discovered that they shared a passion for Kannada writers. But most exciting was the fact that his bookshelves, as crowded as she had imagined, sported many new and fascinating writers. She read out some of the titles excitedly. And then, they have a very nice conversation with books. And then Mr. Murthy does the smartest thing before they leave. At the end of the evening, before she could ask, he offered to loan her as many books as she wanted. He filled a shopping bag, the simple kind a housewife might take to the market to buy vegetables, with the volumes she chose. And then the line. At the door, as she was about to say goodbye, he took a deep breath. May I invite you to have dinner with me tomorrow night? Maybe at a restaurant? It was not Sudha's habit to go somewhere with a man she had just met. But to her surprise, she heard herself agreeing. Was it because their conversation, at once frank and deep, had made her feel she knew this man better than she did most of her colleagues, even people she had worked with for months? Was it the way his eyes shone with intelligence behind his glasses? She pulled herself together and said, but Prasanna, the common friend, must come with us too. In a stern voice, she added, and I will pay for my own dinner. She chose the venue, Pune Coffee House, which was inexpensive and unpretentious and served tasty meals and was therefore popular with young people. It was the kind of restaurant where one went with friendship, not romance, in mind. He agreed to everything, bowing gallantly, like a Parisian might, she thought. Later, he would say, and this is not the way Murthy speaks usually, as you will realize as soon as I read, and these are exactly what he said to her, and he told this to me. Do you know, you lit up the room when you walked into our flat. I traveled all over the world, but I'd never met a woman so fully interested in life. I couldn't stop thinking about you after you left. The next night, he showed up outside Pune Coffee House half an hour early. And that is how Sudha Kulkarni, 24, and Narayan Murthy, 28, began a relationship that would open the doors of aspiration for many young people. That would open the doors of aspiration for many young people who came from similar middle-class backgrounds and ultimately changed the face of entrepreneurship and Philanthropy in India. But don't think it's going to be all like roses and moonlight. They're going to have many challenges. There's even going to be arguments and fights, and it's all in the book.
So, Mrs. Murthy, it's your 46th wedding anniversary this week. Happy anniversary in advance.
Thank you, Priyanka.
You,
I met Murthy exactly 50 years back, half a century back.
half a century. And what a half century it's been.
Many ups, many downs, many disappointments, many successes. And life has been a roller coaster many times, but ultimately peace in mind and trust in with each other and understanding each other's mindset. That's what remained with us.
I think that's the best advice we can all take from here. But you know what's interesting to me is that you, in the book, you say, and Chitra ji writes, that books brought you and your husband together. In fact, it was your key criteria. When your father asked you what you were looking for in a man, you said he has to be a reader. And it seems apt that we're here today telling your story. But what made you decide that this was the right time to tell your story in such a novel way?
I will stand so that you can see.
No, please. Of course.
No, then those people can't see.
Please.
Best is if I stand, everybody can see.
No, Miss Murthy, please.
Can you see me? Yeah, leave it. Actually, many people tell me I should write my biography, but if I write my biography, I may be biased. And if somebody writes third person who knows us and who does not know us, both. Like Chitra knows me since 40 years. She also does not know me, my inner things. So it was not my idea, it was Chiki Sarkar's idea that a book should be written, not the success of Infosys, the struggle of a young couple with no money, absolutely no money, and start their journey with a hope. Hope is the one which holds us to the life. And she said this has to be written, and who else other than Chitra can understand these things? Many things are common with me and Chitra. Many things are uncommon with me and Chitra. So the book came out because of Chitra's continuous efforts for 2 years, because I'm an extrovert, I talk. Mr. Murthy doesn't talk. Okay. He's so different than me, but still we were married because opposite poles attract each other. Okay. So it is a book of Chitra, and Chiki commissioned this. That's the reason the book has come out. It is not because I wanted to write. No.
So, Chitra ji,
Can I just add something to that? Yeah, as you were saying, I was able to be objective, but also something that I really wanted in this book was not just the happy days, because I wanted to show them fully as human beings with all their challenges and difficulties. But one of the most fun things was when, I came to Bangalore as part of the process and stayed with them for like days on end, and I would say, well, tell me about this. And Sudhaji would have one memory, and Murthyji would have a different memory of the same event. So that was lots of fun, because then we would all be arguing, and finally we would come up with a common version. So that is just to say, memory is a slippery thing.
That it is, and everyone has a different perspective. But I want to go back to, this isn't a traditional biography you would expect from titans of an industry. And in fact, it's your first time in nonfiction. So was there something you were nervous about? I know you said you were surprised by, the different stories, but was there something you were nervous about when you approached writing this and structuring the book?
Oh, yes. Well, in general, I'm always nervous when I start a new book. I do, lots of prayers before I start a new book, because the inspiration, I'll put in the hours, I'll put in the hard work, And the Murthys were they were very cooperative. They helped me through the whole process. But still, I was venturing into unknown territories.
Yes.
And I wanted to write a good book, a true book, an honest book, a book that would touch the hearts of people. And I realized something. You can write a non-fiction book, but you can use fictional techniques. And that's what I did. And even the little bit that I read to you, it's like a scene, right? You can see it, you can imagine it. I'm not telling you, I'm trying to show you how it was at that time, how the characters were feeling. I'm trying to go into the characters, and all of these are fictional techniques.
Yes.
So it's a book of non-fiction in which I've used fictional techniques, just like in Palace of Illusions.
Well, your storytelling is apt, so I think, we're waiting for the movie version of the book. But Mrs. Murthy, one of the things that really struck me in the book was about your first job at Telco, because it was about you taking a stand for women's rights, which at that time was unheard of. I would love for you to share that story with the audience and, what you were up against when you took that job.
Well, when I took up my first job at Telco, which is not the Tata Motors today, factory workers were not used to seeing a lady in sari working on a shop floor. They thought if there's a lady who touches the machine, that year the profit will come down or something. So they were quite unhappy. It was the year 1974. Can you imagine 50 years back? 50 years back. Nobody would talk to me, but I was used to people not talking to me because when I was in engineering college, I was the only girl. There were 149 boys and nobody would talk to me. Like I was a new animal in the zoo. Okay? Nobody will welcome. So I was not worried about it. And there was a lot of challenges like, suppose I want some guidance, nobody will help. I will sit and eat alone with my lunch box. And slowly, by this time I realized, anything you do which is not normal, this is probably, it happens, people show their anger, their unhappiness on this, and you have to have patience. I belong to that generation where patience was born with us, not like today's where instant gratification. We were not like instant gratification people. So I said, let me have patience, talk to them, tell them that though they used to say woman cannot work well, being a lady, I can do a job as good as probably better than you, and not boast about you. It took couple of years for me to prove. And funny thing, Priyanka, after 50 years, in the year 1974 to year 2024, I went back to Tata Motors. Now there are 800 girls.
Wow. And you were the pioneer. You set the way. You led the way, really. You broke that glass ceiling. So that's incredible. Chitraji, there are so many moments in this book, and I don't want to give too much away because everyone should buy and read the book. But what for you was the biggest moment where you were just amazed by how forward-thinking Mrs. Murthy was?
There are just so many moments. I think she really thought outside the box a lot. And she didn't think like a woman from her background of that time would think. And I'll talk about one incident in the book which shows both of their characters. And this was when Infosys had been started and they had their first client abroad, Mr. Don Lyles, who is a truly colorful character.
Yes.
And maybe we'll talk more about
him.
Don Lyles in a moment. But Don Lyles had this bad habit that he didn't always remit the money that he owed the company and at the right time. So 1 month there is no money in the account, it's time to pay the employees of Infosys. And Mr. Murthy, he's very particular about certain things. He's very idealistic. And one of his things is that my employees must be paid on time. So what are we to do? So then Sudhaji says, let's go to the bank and I will give them my jewelry as surety and we can borrow some money. And Mr. Murthy is very upset, right? So she's very matter of fact about it, but Mr. Murthy is very upset. To him, that brings back some unhappy memories which are resonant. He came from a family with many financial challenges, and there was a moment when his mother had to pawn her jewelry and she never was able to get it back. So he's very emotional. And Sudhaji says to him, "Why are you getting emotional? What is jewelry for? What is gold for? It's just for a moment like this. My jewelry matters nothing to me, except that I can help you with it." And I thought, you know, and then she goes to the bank, she gives the jewelry. The bank manager says, no, we know you for a long time, you don't need to. But she's very insistent. She says, "I want to do it right," and she gives the jewelry. And Mr. Murthy is very sad when he's coming back. Her arms are bare. But she says, "I don't feel anything about it. Why should you?" Of course, the story has a happy ending. She does get her jewelry back. But I thought, you know, that is not how most people think about their possessions that are valuable. And that moment really touched me. Both what Sudhaji said, but also how Mr. Murthy,
reacted.
you know, he was in tears.
Yes.
He's not a man who shows a lot of emotion, but there are moments in this book when he is in tears.
Yes. What also comes out from the book is that you gave the first 10,000 rupees capital for Infosys, which was all the savings you had. When you were telling Chitraji all the stories about the book, when you look back, you know, at your time, there were so many decisions you had to make. You had to choose between MIT and telco. You gave the money for Infosys, but you were not part of the team. Were there moments that when you look back, you would said, "I would have liked to do over," or wondered, "What if?"
Well, if I have to go back, the time goes back, I will do the same.
You would do the same.
Yeah, because I feel Infosys closed one window to me, but it opened many doors. I gave 10,000 rupees not to become a billionaire, because I believed in my husband's dream. Here's a young man who has the capacity, who works hard, who is honest, and he's dreaming to build a company. Whether I make profit or loss, it doesn't matter, but I would like to give money. I am never fond of money so much. So that's the reason money has not affected me. I come from a teacher's family. My grandfather was a high school teacher. My mother was a school teacher. My father was a professor and a doctor. I'm married into a teacher's family. You know, my father-in-law was a high school teacher. For us, money is something very important. It was never there because we never had that kind of money. We always had books in our house. So money never enchanted me, never drove me to work for that and make a lot of profit. It was never in my agenda. So if the time goes back, I will do the same thing.
I love that. No regrets.
No regrets.
And can I add something?
Yes.
So one of the pleasures of writing this book was that every once in a while, Murthy and Sudhaji would just say something to me that was like perfect, shining dialogue. And I was like, yes, totally this could go into a movie. But it came from their hearts. And Sudhaji said to Murthy at one point, "You be the acrobat, you be the trapeze artist. I will be your safety net." I was
that.
like, what a line.
I love that line too. I think it's incredible. And in fact, I was watching an interview of Mr. Murthy's recently where he said that he credits his success to your understanding, to your partnership, the fact that you were his safety net. And of course now, you know, back then there wasn't a startup culture. Now we're living in a startup culture. So what would be your advice to the partners or founders, you know, who had to go through the challenges you faced as much as, Mr. Murthy faced?
Well, I want to tell young entrepreneurs in different way. We had no money, no loan, nobody will give us. So there's no angel investors.
Yes.
We have to work very hard even to get 10 rupees. But we also did not have great competition. Please remember the simple mathematical equation. 1 by 2 is equal to 2 by 4 is equal to 3 by 6. That means every generation has same different kind of difficulties, but difficulties will be there. Don't think, oh, we had a great time and you don't have. I don't believe. Many parents talk, we did not have all these things. Look, you have all those things. You have a single room, you have bed, you can afford many things. We never had. But that time this kind of a fierce competition was also not there. So you should remember, for every entrepreneur, he has to undergo all difficulties and his family has to undergo difficulties. If the woman is an entrepreneur, the man has to understand. If the man is an entrepreneur, woman has to understand. It is not a magic game. You press a button and you get the reply. It is not smartphone. Life is not a smartphone. Press a button, you may not get anything.
Yeah.
Press a button, wait for some time, you may get something. Press a button, after some time you may get bonus. In our time, in our life, we press the button for long time, 10, 12 years, we got bonus. Please remember, difficulties are part of entrepreneurship. And one who can bear, that fellow only can do. Otherwise, everybody cannot be entrepreneurship. In life, nothing is hereditary. My father was an entrepreneur, so I will become. I'm an entrepreneur, so my son will become an entrepreneur. Nothing is hereditary except illness or diseases. Father was a diabetic, I will get diabetic.
So we can only blame our parents for those things. But Mrs. Murthy, you started writing in English at the age of 52. And now, look at this audience. You are, like I said earlier, the rock star of the publishing world. But you also got into writing at a very low point in your life. And you credit writing for seeing you through those difficult moments. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And did you ever think this is where you would be career-wise?
No, I never thought. I used to write. From school days, I used to write. College days, I used to write. But I used to write in Kannada. Kannada is the language of Karnataka, which is 2000 years old. And I studied up to 10th class only in Kannada, including mathematics, zoology, biology, everything in Kannada. At the time of 16 years, when I joined college, I did not know how to write one paragraph of English because English was my third language. Then I go to science college and I came back and told my mother, what they talk, I understand to some extent, but I cannot write. I had 4 friends who were from my college. They said, look Sudha, our father will get us married after the first degree. Why go to science college where we don't understand magnetism, electricity, words only, and fail? And if we fail, in my time, if you fail, you will get married that year only. It was the year 1966, I'm talking. They said, we don't want to fail and marry this year. So they rather went to another Kannada medium, major in Kannada in some other college, got their degree in Kannada and got married. But I was not ready for that. I said, no, I want to do engineering, but did not know English. I went and told my mother. My mother said, no problem. Tomorrow onwards, you are going to read only English books, English paper, learn. And that made me to learn English better, and I passed the entrance test and I got a very good marks. I stood first. Anyway, but still I continued to write only in Kannada up to year 2000. Up to 2000 when I was 50 years old. One day, TJS George, who is the editor of New Indian Express, and called me and said, Sudha, why can't you write columns for New Indian Express? I said, sir, I have never written in English. In Kannada, you can ask me anything, I can write very well. My vocabulary is very good. He said, you are a storyteller. A storyteller is like a vehicle rider or a driver. Any vehicle is fine for them. People who can drive two-wheeler, four-wheeler, six-wheeler, whatever it is. So you are a driver and you write what you feel like. Then I wrote my first column, Honesty Comes from Heart, and sent it to TJS George, and I told him, sir, if you don't feel it's right, you can reject. And it came November 12th, 2000 as my first English column in Indian Express. Then I realized, even I can do, nothing is difficult. Chalo, let me write more. Then I started writing for Times of India, Hindu, many papers. And my first book came when I was 52, the collection of all my columns in year 2002. The advantage of writing in English, I realized, your books can be translated to 13 to 15 languages, Indian languages, or any other language. If I write in Kannada at the most it can be translated to Marathi, but not to Gujarati, not to Urdu, not to Kashmiri, not to Dogri, not to French, not to Persian language. So many languages my books are available. So I realized the power if you write in English, your base, your database will be large. It's like a bottom of the pyramid. And that helped me a lot. And from 2002 to 2024, I have written 32 books in English.
Wow. And they've been translated into 28 languages. So I think anyone who thinks age is a barrier, this is proof that it really isn't. Chitraji, your books are known for impeccable research. So how did you prep for this book? How much time did it take? How much time did you spend with the Murthys? Can you take us through a little bit of the process?
Sure. So, as Sudhaji was mentioning, this book took about 2 years to write. First, I did all the research I could do on my own, and my publisher sent me a lot of material. And then we started doing questions and answers through email, and the Murthys were very helpful. They would send back my answers to my questions right away. And then we started doing Zoom interviews so that we could go deeper into the issues and I could ask them, but then what happened? How did you feel? All of the other things. What were you wearing? Just all kinds of questions to bring those scenes alive. But the final and most important part was when I went and stayed with them in Bangalore. My husband, who's also called Murthy. So and we went and stayed with them, and I got to live with them. I got to feel the essence of their lives. And that was most important, and we did a lot of just days worth of conversations with the recorder on, and later I compiled all of them, showed everything to the Murthys, and we came up with, then they gave me input and I came up with the final version. I also interviewed Sudhaji's siblings, all of them, and I interviewed Rohan, and I interviewed Akshata in the UK. So it was really a true joint effort. So some of the fun things were when I went to Bangalore. Rohan was living in Bangalore. He was in the city at that time. So he would also come over. And he was a great help in writing this book. And he would push them. And Sudhaji would say something. And she's very philosophical and she's very accepting. And he'll say, but Mom, I remember you were upset. I remember you were crying. Tell Chitra about it. So that got us really into the book and into the very human emotions behind the success of these people who have become icons, but who really are very much like us.
So, talking about your children, as a working mother, I could feel your pain and your guilt in the chapters when you talk about having to leave your daughter with family so that you could have work. But you still remained optimistic and pragmatic and, cheerful through it all. What is the one principle that you have passed down to your children, and now what is something that you teach your grandchildren?
Well, you can pass down many things, but how many things they can take it. So I normally don't advise too much to anyone. I don't advise. The reason is, after a certain age, there's a very famous saying in Sanskrit, when your children are 16, treat them like your friends. Shodasha varsha prapteshu putram mitra vadacharet. He is like your friend. So I tell both kids a few things. And unless they ask, I don't tell. But when the situation came, they did ask my opinion. I told them, in life, be positive. You can be always negative. That it takes less effort. Be positive. Look at brighter things. And when God has given you a position, please help people who are poorer than you or who require some help. That is one message I'm very particular. You first get a first rank, this, that, I've never told. Be a good human being first. That is more important than me achieving ranks. Though I myself got gold medal, but I never expect my children should have gold medal. I got it, it's okay. They don't get it, it's also okay. But be a good human being, be honest, be positive, and work hard. In life, you can learn many things by your experience, but it's extremely expensive teacher.
It is.
Yeah. Nothing is free in life. Everything is expensive in terms of experience, in terms of the emotions, except mother's love. Everything is expensive. So, be a good human being, work hard, think positive, and that is hope. and stick to that and never show off your position. Because today you have this position, tomorrow it will go away. There are many people before me are born and they were emperors and kings and queens. There are many people who will be great president, prime ministers later also. So don't think that this position is permanent, It is a transient. And don't be show off that one. Don't show off. Be humble and be natural and be a good human being. This is my advice. How do you want to take it is left to you. More than that, I don't get into that.
I know you say you don't give advice, but I think that is spot on. And I think as a mother, I hope I can pass that on to my children.
My son says, you don't give advice, but you give too much.
You can always count on your children to put you in your place.
Before we move away from the topic of advice, actually, as I was writing this book, I realized that the children gave Sudha ji some very good advice at some key points. Akka, tell them about that. How?
Which one? Many there.
When Akshata gave you the advice.
Yes. My Chitra may call me Akka, please don't mistake. She can't call me sometimes suddenly Mrs. Murthy because I know her for a long time. One day my daughter she was 16. She used to read for a blind child. She was a reader to a blind child on her own. It is not I pushed my daughter, you should do these things. No. On her own, she used to go to a blind school and read for a child by the name Anand Sharma. And he was a bright kid. He got admission to St. Stephen's College in Delhi. My daughter came and told me, Amma, Anand got admission in Delhi prestigious school and he requires financial help. I was head of the department of computer science and I did not have time. So I just told her, yes, so who will sponsor him? I said, Akshata, you can sponsor him. And I was searching for question papers because I have to set a question paper. So for the coming year examination and previous paper, I have to find out. She told me, Amma, paper talks about our money. You don't give, 10 rupees in our hand. I never give pocket money to my children. No. What do you want? Give me the list, I will buy. Or both of us will go and buy. No money transaction to them until they are 21. No money. Okay? And in their good old days, they listened. Okay? So she said, I don't have any money in my hand. How can I sponsor? And still I was searching my question paper. I did not listen to her. She said, Amma, you are 45 years old. You have done very well academically. You have helped Appa to build Infosys. You have very good knowledge of life. And if you can't do social work, then you don't have any right to talk about social work with anyone. What is your aim in life? She asked me. At this age, what is your aim? I did not answer to her. I went to university to deliver the papers, etc. And as usual, when you go to university, the meeting was cancelled. I sat below the dusty table and the high ceiling of Central College and I thought, what is my aim in life? I went on looking at my life inwardly. Is it money? Is it knowledge? Is it traveling abroad? What is it? I said, this is the time I should give back to my people. I should help my own people. I pass this life only once. I don't believe in rebirth, second life, third life, I don't know. I pass this life only once. If I can show compassion and help others, let me do it now. A daughter of a doctor gets this kind of a honeypot like money. For what reason? The reason is God cannot be present everywhere. He tells you, look, I have given you wealth. You should spend it on poorest of the poor of the society. And it took 15 days on that. I thought over it. Then I went and resigned my post and started Infosys Foundation. I'm extremely happy. I was sleeping. My daughter woke me up. Probably in our family, youngsters teach elders. I taught my grandmother at the age of 62 how to write A-I-E. So always we learn from youngsters. Akshata woke me up and made me what I am today. I am grateful to her.
And it started a second innings for you career-wise with Infosys Foundation. And in fact, I was watching the interview with Mr. Murthy where he said he's enjoying his grandchildren, but you seem to be doing more and more. You have a new YouTube channel with cartoons. Can you tell us what's next for you?
Yeah. Murthy said, oh, I enjoy grandchildren. Well, I've done enough in life. My innings are over. I said, no, I have a lot more innings are left. Because a day will come, children may not like so many books. They want to have knowledge, but maybe through cartoons or through Kindle or through audiobooks. It may happen, no? So I told the best way to convince children to have good values, because anyway they will see TV. So you can ration TV time or the computer time or the digital time, but it can't be making, you can't make it zero. You can reduce it. The best way for them to do is, when they want to see, let us give them a good value-based story books or stories. So I just started with my daughter-in-law, Aparna Krishnan, Murthy Media, where my books were converted into stories. My stories are converted into digital media and in the cartoon form, and I called Story Time with Sudha Amma, STSA. Okay? So that I'm promoting, because I want children should have good values, when they have interaction with the digital media. So I told I have to do a Gopi series, I have to do a lot more story books. So I told my innings are a lot more are left. It is not over. Again, I think positive way,
Well, more power to you. We hope you have lots of stories left that you can share with us across medium.
Yeah.
Chitra ji, before we wrap up and leave for questions, I want to ask you, is there anything that you would love to share for the readers to know about this book? Any little detail?
Well, I think, I don't want to give away any more because the book is the best part of whatever I got out of this. But I will share a small little funny thing that I learned when I was visiting the Murthys. And that is about Gopi, their lovely dog, okay? And Gopi is this charming golden retriever, very friendly. But Gopi led me to understand something about Mr. Murthy. So everybody loves Gopi. Gopi comes, he'll cuddle up next to you. But when he comes near Mr. Murthy moves away from him just a little bit, because Mr. Murthy was scared of dogs when he grew up. One of his friends was bitten by a dog and had to go through a series of, those shots that you have to take. And it was a real understanding. It was a real traumatic event, and it helped me understand how childhood trauma does inform our lives not in an intellectual way, but in a very subconscious basic way. Yeah. And it led me to ask him many questions about his young days. And so this book is full of some very powerful and sometimes painful episodes that he has never talked about to anyone. And I felt very honored that he would be willing to share them with the readers of this book.
So, Mrs. Murthy, I mean, on another note, I think it's incredible how you've balanced, Chitraji, the poignant, the intense with the light-hearted and the fun. And I loved that you had a bet in college to watch first day, first show, 365 movies in the year, and you won the bet because, as we know, Mrs. Murthy is a big film buff. So I have to ask you, do you still follow that? And what was the last movie you watched and loved?
Well, it's not in college days. Sorry. I couldn't afford it, okay?
Working days, sorry.
Working days, I did not first day, first show. I prefer it, but 365 movies should be seen in 1 year, and I saw. Okay, and I'm bilingual with Marathi, so I saw a lot of Marathi movies. Of course, I like Hindi movies. That is the best for me. I'm not fond of any other language, but Hindi #1. Okay, Bollywood, that is good. Okay. Not experimental art. No, I like with songs, with fight, with masala,
all the masala.
With romance. I enjoy. Life is like that, Why go on and show it, okay, I'm detached. I'm detached in many ways, but not from Hindi movies. Okay?
Then it's all about masala.
Yeah, because I like, it's a great entertainment, it's a great message.
Yeah.
I told once Farhan Akhtar, please remember, movie actors have a lot of power to convey the message. You do wrong things, people will do the wrong things.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of responsibility. So I do enjoy seeing Hindi movies a lot. But now going to theatre is reduced a lot. I enjoy with OTT and all those things.
So what was the last movie that you loved?
Well, last is difficult to tell. What is that? Archie? Shah Rukh
Archie.
Khan's daughter.
Yes.
Shah Rukh Khan's daughter
Archie.
and Agastya Nanda. Okay, I saw the last one, but I wait to see a lot more because a lot of water is flown between now and then now.
Yeah.
Okay, but I saw, I'm very fond of Alia Bhatt. I like her a lot.
Lots of Alia Bhatt fans. But I love that you loved Archie's because it's based on a comic.
Now, I have to say something. So then I was interviewing them, and Sudhaji was telling me all these things, how she was, she loved Hindi movies. So I asked Mr. Murthy, so you used to go to movies with her also? You also like Hindi movies? And he looked at me kind of shyly, and he said, not really. I didn't like watching Hindi movies, but I liked watching Sudha.
That actually gets me to one of my favorite parts of the book. Chitraji, you described their honeymoon in Mathiran, and after 2 days of walking, reading, visiting the waterfalls, the Murthys decide to cut short because they've seen all they need to see and head back to reality and work. And this line for me really sums up their relationship, this book, what you just said best. And I think it's something we can all aspire to. They had learnt an important lesson that would help through the coming years. All they really needed in order to have a good time was each other.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we are only one question.
We have time for, I think, just a few questions. Does anyone have the mic? Yes? The young lady in the front.
Hello. What is better to be, a good human being or a...
Some kids' question.
Okay.
Time up.
Hello. Hello. My name is Alia, and I would like to ask, what is better to be, a good human being or a philanthropist?
A good, every philanthropist is always a good human being.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Not children question.
Oh, yes.
Elders can.
This gentleman.
I will have many sessions with children.
I think actually at the back. Can we go a little further back?
Time up, time up.
Oh.
Only 21
20 seconds. Wherever you can grab the mic. Whoever can grab the mic for a question.
Yes, sir.
Namaste. Your advice to young parents.
We will do the parent session in children's section, sir. Because this is Chitra's
Yes.
session. Ask Chitra something.
Can we keep the questions to the book? Do we have a few more minutes for questions? We do. Okay. Can we pass the mic back?
Yes,
If you
ma'am.
have questions related to this session,
Yes,
please.
I have a question, ma'am. You've read many books. Which is that one book which really fascinates you? And you can always talk about that book to anyone. That one book.
No. I'm reading from the age of 8 onwards. I have read thousands of books. Not one book. There are many, many books which I can talk about it. I can talk about the literature, or I can talk the history or archaeology, or many more computer science. So I can't name one book. I can't name
Wonderful.
one.
Thank you.
We're done.
have to finish.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry we don't have time for more questions, but thank you to this audience for coming out, despite the weather and despite the rain. Thank you, Mrs. Murthy, for all your candor, and Chitraji for writing a brilliant book. I urge all of you to go by and read this uncommon love story.
And thank you for wonderful moderation.